answer to your question might be a new notation for something. It could be something quite innovative. But what do you need to know on the way? What do you need to do on the way? What do you want to achieve? And I try and get students to then have sort of which are core, which are advanced. Which ones do you think, if you didn't achieve that goal, you've failed in your own mind? Never mind what we think. And which ones do you think, well, they're just things I'd quite like to do. If I don't get time, then never mind. I'll do it later in my life. So try and come up with this idea of core and advanced if you can. Okay. It does say you might have a shopping list of advanced achievements, and you can't work out what they're even possible yet. You just don't know enough about the project. The practical investigation, this really is turning it into what you need to measure, what you need to build, construct, experiments, surveys, what data you're going to need, what you're going to do with it. And turning those into a task analysis with an outline plan. Okay? So task analysis and outline plan. I'll come back to those later. What are you going to do when? Okay? Let's say you fit them into the time available box of the big week. We're already down 14. But we may be planning some beginning of the project. What do you think about that one? And it's useful to ask what we get out of doing all this stuff, what will you produce. There are common mistakes like I'm going to read about some object-oriented design. I didn't really understand it when I studied it before, and I think that might be useful. But you start a reading program, but you're not really sure what you're going to get out of it. Sometimes it's better to do it the other way around and say, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? Now what do I need to read in order to solve it? If you start an aimless program of education of yourself, there's a fairly good chance at the end of it you'll have improved your education but not actually contributed to your project. So you don't want to waste time. So do ask what it is you're going to achieve. If you can't clearly answer that question, you might have to look at that task ahead. But these are things you can only really look at once you've written them down. And one of the things that I find incredibly important, and I do rely on the tutors telling me about this, is your resource requirements. I've suggested 5 categories. Literature, we're not about to go out and buy books for you. You can order books at the library if they've got some money that they're prepared to spend. This time of year, I quite often say, do you need anything for the library? But we need to know you can at least get a hold of it. If it's commercial literature, that could be difficult. It's commercially sensitive. So do watch out for that one. Hardware, we do try and provide you with all the hardware that you need, but there may be limits. We don't spend tens of thousands of pounds on one student project. But it might be that there are licenses that we can issue to you to use on a particular machine, a piece of software that we already have licenses for, but we'll just allocate one of them to you. So we need to know what your hardware and software requirements are, and to make sure we can do this. One of the guidelines I give to students is, at the end of this, if you need to demonstrate something working, then it should work somewhere here on this campus that you can demonstrate it. So if you can't, chances are you haven't got the kit and you really shouldn't be sort of starting there. Okay? So there are things we can start having this conversation now. And do watch out for this one. This catches a lot of people out of data. Are you relying on someone else for their data? Every year, the ones that usually get tripped up by this are software engineering projects. Watch out for your software engineering, because the software engineering students in particular, they have grand plans. They want to do software process management. They want data about projects that they can analyse and measure and report to. And you're not going to get it in a commercial sensitive organisation. They're not just going to hand over their project data to you. So watch out for that one. Do you need data? Other ones is sometimes software engineers, sometimes computer scientists, sometimes networking people will want data about real computer systems that are in operation or programs that are running. And again, companies don't hand it over normally. And I can sympathise with the desire to have this data. You've probably read papers, you're a good student, that has used other people's data in their analysis. What you don't see is the agony they went through to get it, or the fact that it was a funded project with the companies involved or something. You don't see that much. But getting them for a student project when there is no contractual relationship between you and that other organisation can be an utter nightmare. So think about it now. What we don't want you to do is realise this and you sell it, because it's a bit late. So ask yourself what data you need now. And access to people or facilities, that's the other one. I'm going to do a survey, I will interview 500 people. Whoa, where are you going to get 500 people from? Well, where are you going to get 500 people from? I'm going to get people to look at my design and see if it's better than the other design. Okay, where are you going to get those people from? Now I do know there are students sometimes that come with money in their pockets to spare, who pay people to do some work for them and watch them do it and take notes. But most students do not have those kind of resources. And your friends will also probably have a project due in the same time as you and may not respond to your requests for help to look at something on your behalf. You need to again think about these issues before you get too far into the project about where you're going to get the people, or are you going to get access to an organisation. And even if you already have a link with an organisation because you already work there, there's a few students I know who've got relationships. What you need to do is ask them now, will I have access to so-and-so in time for a project? Because coming in your project report saying, well, I've arranged a meeting with them but it's not until October and I'm handing my report in September, could be a problem. So we just need to know about them now. They're not always stumbling blocks to doing the project, but we need like to know about these problems up in the past. So this last section may seem insignificant, but it could be the make or break of your project. So we need to make sure it's right. Okay. I've also given a note about sticking anything like a Gantt chart in at the end, bibliography. We obviously want to encourage good practice if you're citing other sources. This might come into the early sections where you're talking about the subject, and it might be a new trend and you want to quote somebody to say this is something that they say is up and coming and I want you to quote them. So make sure you have a bibliography section. But things like perhaps another paper you want to base your work on. There was one student last year I saw, there was a series of experiments done and they just copied those experiments in a new context. Okay? So they just lifted up the whole set of experiments and repeated it again because there was another field which they thought it might be relevant to. So on their proposal they stuck that paper at the back and said, well, I want to do that basically, but I want to do it in this particular context. So they were developing their work that way. So have a look at if you've got any appendices which you think will help make sense of your proposal, stick in at the end, and they don't count in the work. So there's your 5 sections. Essentially you've got academic background, project goals, the practical investigation, task analysis and resource requirements. There may be some overlap, it doesn't really matter if some stuff slides into one section instead of another, as long as you're all right on this, okay? Let me just really... Who's it hasn't got one? Sorry about that. It can change. And in many, many cases, it should change after you've put it in, okay? You would not be considered a sensible student if you proposed something which is clearly not quite right for you, either it's too ambitious or it's not ambitious enough, or it's in a subject area that's not going to work because it doesn't fit with your expertise. And we tell you this, and then you stick with it anyway. So there is nothing in the process here that says you are registering a title. There is no concept of you registering a title, okay? You can change your project as many times as you like. You can do it the night before the deadline. I think it would be stupid to change your project the night before the deadline, but you can change it as often as you like. There is no commitment to this plan, okay? This is just what I'm thinking about today, okay? So it can change and probably will change in the majority of cases. That is what you need to know, okay? So don't get so attached to this that you think, if I put this, I'm going to have to do it. No, you don't, okay? It's an idea, it's a discussion point, but you might not have to do it. The other thing to be aware of is it's okay to be wrong. There are no marks for this quite deliberately, okay? You might be saying, This has never been done before, this is a completely new application of this. And your tutor looks and goes, yes, we've done loads of times. I know, you're not experts perhaps in your field yet. So you might write something and it's a bold statement and it's completely load of tosh. Doesn't matter, okay? It's all right to be wrong. You're not going to get a mark for how right and how knowledgeable you are about the subject. So, just say what you think and be bold about it. It's better to put it down and get those assumptions out on the table with your tutor than not say it at all. I've done it again. Anyway, I'm doing. Okay, so it is fine to be wrong. We can change it later. But unless you say what you think, we won't know that you're thinking something that's not true. So you might be saying, this is easy. This will be taking me for a week. And the tutor will be going, no, it'll take you 7 months. Let's change that, shall we? Okay, so we need to just say what we think and try and get it out of the mode, even the simplest assumptions, and then we can challenge them and fix them. So in other words, the more detail the better, even if you don't really know. You probably haven't a clue how long things might take. You probably don't know if those 3 books that you're suggesting you're going to read in your literature review will actually solve the problem. It doesn't matter. Because if the tutor says, oh, don't read those, they won't get you anywhere. What you need to do is this. That's helpful to you. Okay? So try and give as much detail as you can about what you're planning to do, and we'll try and stop you from doing something good if we know. There's a very good chance the tutor wouldn't know either. I've not read any of those books, and no idea if they're any good. Could be the response. Okay? I like this one, but it's out of print. It's out of print 38 years ago. So have a discussion about what you're planning to do, what data you're planning to use, and the more detail you have, the better it is for the tutor to see where you're thinking at. And it really is just the basis of discussion. All it's for. That's it. After the first week, we may throw it out the window and start again. I know that might hurt because you've put a lot of effort into it, but it really is there to stop you putting 6 months effort, that's 6 weeks effort into it, and then discovering it's not going to work. It's better to do that now. So get as much down as you can. And the big thing I really have to say to some people, there are some people, possibly in this room, others probably hiding at home in a pool of tears, saying, I haven't a clue what to do. Come and find a seat if you can. Anyway. I was perfectly serious when I said last week, you haven't got a clue. I know a few people can do some sections and not others. Have something to say, I haven't got a clue. Because that will go to your tutor. The tutor will read it and go, right, this student hasn't got a clue. It might be helpful if you tell them what you've done, so they know what sort of modules you have studied, what you've done before, what your first degree is, because they'll probably start thinking a little bit for you to make some suggestions. But the sooner you tell them, I haven't got a clue, the better that they can prepare for that first meeting with you to say, well, let's help you with this. It might be, as I said, that you know something about what you want to do, but the only thing you know is when your holiday's booked and the subject, but you haven't worked anything else out. So just tell them that, okay? Try and work things out. But hand something in. If you don't hand something in, I will assume you're not on the module. And I will remove people from the module. Because I don't have a perfect list of students. So one of the ways I work out who's here and who's taking part is who has something in. So a piece of paper saying, I'm here, don't know what I'm doing, but I'm hoping to do something. Don't count me out, it'll be better than nothing. So just tell me at least what your expertise is in, what things you like doing, what you struggle with. If that's all you can tell me, then tell me that. So some of the project proposals will be full of detail, full of plans. The tutor will be ever so pleased, think this is a great body of work, get going, you're going to get a good grade. Others are going to come in going, I don't know, now you're going to be behind, you're going to have a lot of catching up to do. It's not a disaster, we'll get you started, you just have to catch up. So whatever you do, hand something in and do the best you can on those sections. No penalty for doing badly, just hand something in. I've already really covered this first point. My common things to watch out for is, does your project rely on somebody else's? data, information, and code that's going to be put to access. Every year there's at least one student that says they're going to do something better than a commercial product, but they can't actually get access to see inside how it works. So it's difficult to analyse it and compare. So just watch out for that one. Information or people that you might need to access. Those are your risks. They can be managed, but they might have to be worked around. And you might have to say, well, you can never get access to it because your project falls apart. Maybe we shouldn't do that. This is your master's. You don't want to wreck it just for the sake of a project. Also, watch out if you are doing it for a third party. If you've got a third party involved, a company that you're working it for, even if it's your uncle's company, what's going to happen if they pull the plug on it? Is there a project left? And sometimes there is, because you can just carry on regardless. You don't need a customer, you're not selling it. So you can just carry on with the idea, but would that actually jeopardise your particular project if you need access to their network or you need access to their records or something? So just think about the risks, what can happen. And there could be risks, yes, I know this person, he's not going to stop me having access to such and such. There was one year where the sponsor of the project died. Nobody predicted it, just had a heart attack and died. And then, of course, nobody knew the codes to the software that he was sharing with the student. The student couldn't access it, nobody in the company could either. It was a disaster for the company and a disaster for the student's project as well. So the student ended up having to defer. It was too far in. So just think about the risks. I'm not saying that people are going to die, but just be careful what you're relying on. The other thing just to have a look at is, are you planning to do something that will not help your grade? People treat the project as an opportunity to develop themselves, which is nice, but if there's a lot of time being committed to, I'm going to strengthen my abilities in, but that's not actually going to help your project anymore, I might question whether you are directing your efforts in the right place. You have the rest of your life to patch up your weaknesses. Do you really want to pamper to them on the project, where there's a grade and a master's at stake? So you might be saying, you know, I never did get the hang of C++. Whatever I'm doing, I'm going to make sure I learn C++ and do something with C++. What, now? You know, you've got an MSc to get here. Do that later. Find a project that's going to be working for you. Or again, it could be the old thing about reading lots of stuff that you want to read, it's interesting, but it's not directly going to impact on what you're doing. So watch out for those. That's another common problem, is that you plan to improve yourself as part of your project, but it doesn't actually impact on the project. A classic one is data creation or data entry. I'm going to produce something as part of my project that will involve cataloguing something. And you demonstrate a process, maybe it's a search algorithm or something, I don't know, whatever you develop. Okay, you come up with a new search algorithm, and you're monitoring performance. Let's just, for the sake of it, I'm going to say that. So you spend half your project creating the data for it to search. Well, that doesn't get you anywhere. Borrow someone else's data. You may have the perfect application for your search algorithm in mind, or go and sell it after you finish your MSc. Don't do it now. Creating data, entering data in a database, just to demonstrate your algorithm, isn't going to get you much kudos. Borrow someone else's data, demonstrate your algorithm, job done, mastered in, now I can use that algorithm to sell myself to the world and the world. Okay? So just watch out for that one. Make sure it has some kind of investigation. The weakest projects are the ones that look like undergraduate projects where you develop something and show that you can apply computer science. Your master's projects, you're supposed to have an investigative project. You're supposed to answer a question. Now, it's not usually that difficult to produce a question with a little bit of prodding, but the students that fail to recognise this, I usually say to them, well, what are you going to learn by doing this? If the answer to that question is, I will learn that I can do something with the computer science, you've lost it. Okay, you needed to have done more than that. The coursework modules have told us that you have learned something, that you can do something in computer science. This is about, can you investigate it and tell the answer to a question? Is there a better way of doing something? Is there a better method? Is there a difference in performance of two things that already exist that have never been compared? I don't care what it is, but you should have some kind of investigation and some question in order to do a proper master's project. So if you can't tell me what you think you're going to learn, then the chances are it's not a good project. So I have tried to tell a few people, if you think you're going to produce a better method, some people have come on, I think I could do this better. And the answer to the question, is this a better method, is no. That's not a disaster. Because we're not trying to sell the method, we're not trying to sell a product, we're not trying to sell a design, we're trying to assess you. So if you do a whole body of work, and at the end of it you say, do you know what, it's no better than anything else that's already out there, you've got the answer to your question. An answer that's negative is fine. So it doesn't have to be a positive outcome. If you're going to learn something and what you've learned is, well, that idea was useless, it's fine, that's okay. The other criticism, and I'll almost guarantee every project proposal has at least one thing in there. Project proposal, I'm sitting there going, what does that mean you're going to do? In your list of tasks in particular, can you actually tell me what you'll do? So I have to think, I'm going to investigate something. I go, well, what does that mean? I'm going to design and develop a tool to do this. Well, what does that mean? What are you actually going to do? So if you say I'm going to investigate, tell me, is it an experiment, is it a questionnaire, is it, what is it you're actually going to do? You're going to read 10 research papers. I see people saying I'm going to review the literature. I'm going to read 50 books, 5,000 books, 6 papers, 2 papers. Yeah, guess how much. We'll tell you if it's not enough. We'll tell you if it's misdirected. We know, we can tell. If it's something that we know something about. And you'll probably revise your own estimates once you're halfway through anyway. So just have a look at what you're going to do. But what you don't want to do is turn up in your diary. Let's just say you've all got an electronic diary with all your project tasks in there. Today I am investigating this. What am I supposed to be doing? Okay, you should get down to the level where you know what you're doing. Okay, rather than the aim of what you're doing. So think beyond the title, investigation, and think, well, that means I'm going to, let's say, write a survey, send it to the list of companies that I've got from so-and-so, and then wait 3 weeks, then look at responses. If that's what you're going to do, say that's what you're going to do. And the other one is to capture some other people I know who will probably be sitting in the room saying, oh, as soon as I get my chief, I'm sure they'll tell me what to do. Watch out for that, because that will immediately be interpreted as a weakness. Sorry, and all that. If the tutor feels they have to tell you what to do, down to the level of choosing your programming language, designing your project for you, it will all work against you in your final assessment. Okay, they will feel that they are helping you along the way. Because one of the things, just to remind you of the slide we had last week, that second bullet point, can you organise and deliver a program of investigative work? If they have to do it for you, you've already scored lowly in that particular aspect of the assessment. So yes, use them for ideas, but you have to have some drive yourself. So it's great when a student comes along and says, oh, I just thought of this, and going, well, that's not very good. How about turning it over and doing it that way instead? Oh, right, and then we come back and go, yeah, that works, and I've done this. That's the kind of student you are. So it's not without our input. The student who sits there and says, tell me project. There are some project suggestions. Run with it and develop your own from it. Do what the other students I referred to earlier did. Copy someone else's work in a different context. But come up, if you can, with your own ideas. What you probably need to be aware of, hold on a minute. Put it down somewhere. Hold it somewhere. So there's things like the module aims. Have a read of them carefully, and once you've got your proposal written down, either before you hand it in or after, it doesn't matter because it's changed anyway. Just do a sanity check. This one's from Computer Networks Principles and Practice. The aims of the module are, they're all fairly similar. They all start out with contribute to the advancement of knowledge in, right? do the network principles in practice. So you can think, does it actually contribute anything? It's an aim rather than a learning outcome. So it's a bit of an aspiration, but you should ask yourself, what am I helping you with? It says carry out an investigation or testing of ideas. All of them say that. Make critical use of materials and other materials, not just have a long bibliography, but actually make use of literature. Apply your knowledge, in this case of networking, in the context of a substantial piece of independent or investigative work. Deepen your knowledge, leading to a thorough understanding of appropriate techniques. Don't use them, but test your understanding. And you can sort of do a little test against yourself. These are the module learning outcomes, particularly for this one. You can say the words are slightly different in different places, but they're all roughly the same. Have a knowledge and understanding of the design, management and realisation of a programme of investigative and practical work pursued independently. Now, if you're sitting there saying to your tutor, "Could you design the work for me?" what they are immediately thinking is, when I come to assess whether you've got understanding of the design of how to design a programme of investigative work, this student's clearly not up to it. I have to help them a lot. And in fact, I think it's one of the questions on the feedback sheet is, did you have to assist the student a lot? So it does help if you can come up with your own ideas a little bit. Even if they're rubbish and you have to correct them a bit. Come up with your own ideas and we'll get you going. And then it's sort of, can you explain the issues involved? So we even notice it doesn't say produce a wonderful piece of work that works beautifully and you can sell commercially. It really is saying, can you explain it? So even if whatever you've done doesn't work, if you can explain why it doesn't work, you'll get quite a long way with that one. Justify and defend the approach taken. Explain why you did it that way. Seemed a good idea at the time because. But even if what you produce is useless, doesn't work, what a bad idea with hindsight, if you can explain all that and why, we think you're a good student. I don't. It's simply because we are assessing you, not the artefact you produced. And then it talks about investigating and analysing problems, hypotheses, and be able to write a thesis, which hurts some people can't do that. We'll look at that a bit later in the module. But it's worth just having a quick flick through these documents every now and again just to do a check against your own. So do make sure that you've at least read it once and have some idea, because that will be in front of the tutor when they are marking your work. Okay? Those learning outcomes here are passed to the tutors as they're assessing them to remind them what they're supposed to be assessing against. So that document, it's not a secret, it's up there for you to read. It is on every module you've ever taken, you've probably never read them before. But when it comes to a piece of coursework, the work is defined for you, so the chances are if you do it well, you'll meet the learning outcomes. Here you could go quite in the wrong direction because you're designing the work, so it's important that you keep an eye on those. So read the module guide. It's one of my to-do lists. I'll just get you back onto the original laptop. Another thing to keep an eye on, reread the briefing for the project proposal. I sometimes want to do a quiz at this point to see how many people read it already, but it might be a bit cruel. It's doing for another 2 days. But for instance, when we ask you to submit something on StudyNet, I have requests from several tutors for both PDF and doc or docx files. Now, in this case, there's no penalty if you don't follow my instructions. But imagine this was a final thing, you didn't follow the instructions. One of the things I note when a student gives some work is, can they follow instructions? Because it usually gives you an indication of how well they're going to do at the end. So the reason for that, which seems a bit strange, most staff prefer PDFs anyway, and that's preferred. Some staff will occasionally be travelling, and on the conference activity over this summer period. So they like to be able to look at their documents on a mobile device. And PDFs work quite well there, but doc files don't. But they also like the doc files because sometimes they want to write comments in, so they want something you can easily edit. Now, editable PDF files are very, very useful amongst the staff, but we are aware that not all of you have got access to the right kind of software to produce a PDF that's editable. You can use that for that. Right, I think rather than what most of us do is print the file and save as a PDF, the lazy way. Okay, that's what most of us would do. So those instructions are in the briefing for the project proposals. You probably forget about it. So read it once, yes, do your work, read it again. But also, particularly for the content, to check that you have answered the questions as outlined, as best as you can, so you don't miss anything. Of course, reading the textbook should help because we try to tie the module and the textbook together a little bit so that we're using the same understanding of what a project is. Perhaps be careful about reading the textbooks cover to cover for the sake of it. I've read 5 books this week, hooray! Yeah, so what? We're back to that, don't read for the sake of reading. Make sure you're reading directly. What is it you need to know? Where you're going to find the answer. And usually flicking through a book, you can find out quite quickly whether it's going to answer your question or not. So spend a bit of time. But have a little bit of a plan for your reading as well, so you don't drift into just reading around the subject, but actually have a targeted response. Right, I need to move on. Right, there's quite a bit of planning in this proposal. Please do not do what some, particularly maths students, I think that's all maths students, they think the plan is something to beat themselves up over. I'm 4 days behind. You know, absolutely ridiculous. It's just a piece of paper. It's actually your plan and it doesn't belong to us. There's no registering of your plan. Nobody's going to care if you're sticking to it, other than you. So don't beat yourself up with it. It is a tool. It should make you think ahead so that things don't catch you out by surprise. Okay, so you think it through. You think about the problems in advance. Oh yeah, when am I going on holiday? Oh yeah, I've got to go and see the family that weekend, so I won't do anything that weekend. And you just predict things so they don't catch you out. If you are sitting there with your tutor saying, I think I'm now 3 weeks behind, what's wrong? Is it you? Or is it the plan? You don't know the answer to that question at this point in time. Neither does your tutor, but you need to know once you're sitting there and reflecting on what's happening. If you're working your block off and you're falling behind, there's a fairly good chance that the plan is wrong, that it was too ambitious, that you need to rethink it. If you're finding it difficult to get down to doing your project because you're actually having a bit of a holiday and enjoying the sunshine and keep going out with your mates and you're not actually putting in the hours and you're saying, I'm not keeping up, is this a symptom that you're going to get to the end of the project and have not achieved what you wanted to achieve because you're just not organising your life better? We don't know. Again, you just have to look at your situation as it runs. So it is a tool. If the plan is sitting on the wall with glue tack, and you're looking at it going, yeah, that's where I am, the chances are it's not detailed enough to be of any use to you anyway. It should be detailed enough that it comes out of date quite quickly. So what I want you to do is actually constantly plan to replan and take account of where you've actually got to. You do not know everything about this project. If you do, it's not ambitious enough. There should be unknowns. As they become more known, then you'll have to replan. It's a fact of life. Build it in. You can even write it in your diary. Monday morning is replanning morning. Whatever you want to do. Alright? So you actually replan to take account of where you've got to. The other thing you need to know, it is your plan, not ours. We do not need to see revised plans. Okay, you put in your plan at the beginning, we say it looks fine, you carry on with it, you replan it, for whatever reason, discover that you didn't know X about Y. We don't need to see it again. But I would suggest, if you are going to make major changes to your plans, you at least talk it through with your tutor. If you decide, oh, I'm not going to do that at all, I'll do this instead, you might say to you, as I would have done at the beginning, yeah, but your new project isn't going to tick enough boxes to get a good MSc grade. So have that conversation if it's a major change. If you're cutting bits out, thinking that was far too ambitious, make sure you're cutting out the right bits, talk it through with your tutor. So yes, consult your tutor about replanning, but they don't need to see the plan every week. It's interesting, once you're doing all this monitoring and replanning, it does actually form a section of your final year, final project report that you can discuss about how good you are at planning. If you haven't a clue how to do it, you've at least got the deadlines which we gave you, which you can now put into your plan and work backwards if you like. But before I just here today, one of the things I want to make sure is you are aware that I do not believe that planning is a Gantt chart. Okay? I'm sorry, Microsoft project developers. The Microsoft projects and Gantt charts, particularly Microsoft project ones, I know you've all been taught how to use them probably since you were about 11 years old. They are actually not that helpful in this context. Most of the ones we see have a list of tasks down the side. Should have brought a pen. I've got a ball pen. Okay. Let me guarantee that if you were to draw a Gantt chart, it would be task 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, proper names here, and it would look like that. Okay. So tell me something I don't know. There will be dates somewhere along here. Okay. Right. That's the Gantt chart. It becomes one of those. So you think, well, why bother? Why not just do one long line and say on week 2 you'll finish task 1. And the problem is this Gantt chart might be 6 pages long. You've broken it down a lot. Whereas you could just do it in one line. Week 4, week 8, week 12, etc. So you may as well, because, and the reason it turns into this instead of this, this is for multi-teams really. This is for big projects where you're the person in the middle organising an orchestra of 50 people trying to produce something at the end on time. And it's useful to know what's happening where. So there's only you. You can only be in one place at one time, and the chances are you're going to focus on one thing at a time on any one day. You might want to do 2 things at the same time, maybe even 3, but there's not going to be much kind of interaction. So it may as well be a timeline. And then you think, well, why do I need the line? You may as well just have a list and a deadline. So the Gantt chart, I know lots of you would love to put a lot of effort into them, but really I prefer you to put the effort into the planning rather than the pretty charts. So be careful with that. I want you to concentrate on defining your deadlines and planning on what you're working on needing each day. Forget about learning how to use Microsoft Project again. Forget about nice pretty charts and coloured pens. Just give me what you think you're going to be working on the deadlines, or give you a tutor, I should say. And I reckon there's 2 ways of doing it. Planning backwards and planning forwards. I don't believe one method is better than the other. I believe you have to do both. My planning backwards, oversimplified, is write your end result. And this, say it's the contents page of your report, okay? I'll maybe see if I can get the briefing for your final year project report up in the next couple of days, so you can start reading it. You look at planning more importantly. So write your contents page, and so for that I need to introduce one of those in the diagram for appendix 3, and you can actually work backwards. Say, right, I need to have these things produced. When can I have that produced by? So that's the backwards planning, starting with the deliverables and working backwards. And then forward planning at the end of each day. So you're stuck with something. Before you close your books and make your tea, think, right, I just need to write down where I need to go from here, because you'll probably be stuck in a problem, you've probably got a question, you need to ask your tutor about a couple of things, write it all down before it goes out your head, because I don't know about you, but after a while you forget what it was you were thinking about, so you can plan forward. And it might be that you think, you know, I need to know more about packet switching, and say, right, so I need to learn more about packet switching. What can I do? I know what, I'll go back and revise those notes. I've got a textbook, I could probably read that chapter. I'm going to have a word with so-and-so, they know lots about packet. And you come up with about 3 or 4 tasks, write that down. So when we're going to do that? See them on Wednesday. Should be able to read that. Yeah, I've got time on Friday. And you plan forward. So your plan should have lots more detail early on because of the forward planning, but it also has backward planning, which will send off the alarm bells if you're not keeping up on the grand scheme of things. So you're busy with the busyness of the things that are happening now, with you trying to get something to compile, whatever your problem is. That's your forward planning, sorting out the next few days. I've got to get this working by Friday. But the backwards planning is also reminding you that you're supposed to finish this 2 weeks ago, and you're getting into trouble. Okay? So that's the way I try to do it. We will look at planning more next week, a little bit, and also how to use your supervisor and get your sources and everything sorted out, because you'll be starting your project with a vengeance. There's only one more lecture before I don't see you for a little while. So what I want you to do this week, and it's nice and simple, I'm suggesting reading chapter 4 of the set textbook. The alert amongst you will have noticed I said 1, 2, 3 and 5, and the reason I said 5 before 4 was because 5 started looking at literature review, and I know that most students struggle with that bit more than the others. So we started off thinking earlier about literature and how to sort of plan that part of the project, the literature review. Chapter 4 should be fairly straightforward, but we'll talk more about the planning side of things. I would suggest that you attempt all action points in 4.8 because it has a direct bearing on your project proposal. The project proposal is almost the outcome of action 4.8, plus a little bit more. And then if you can try and hand in whatever you've got, if you're behind now, just hand in what you've got. Alright? By Thursday, 12 noon. And the reason I'm asking you to do it to the deadline, regardless where you've got, is because it doesn't matter, as I said, if it's incomplete or you haven't a clue or whatever. What it does matter is that I know you need a tutor and I know roughly what your requirements are. Because I'm going to be running around like a headless chicken, making sure that my plans, which I can show you if you're desperately interested, I have you all penciled in for a supervisor. Some people already know who their supervisor is. But I have you planned in, penciled in. I'm going to look at the proposal and go, yeah, that should work. Hand it to them, go, you're alright with that project? Right, okay. And those are the other 3 I promised you, and then I go, yeah, oh, don't give me that one. So-and-so will be better with that one. And then I have to change people around. Okay? That's what's going to be going on Thursday and Friday. I'll go into tutors saying, right, you know I said I was going to give you those 5 days of proposals, okay? And they'll go, yeah, hopefully. Or they'll go, that's Daniel's area, give it to Daniel. I've already had one tutor do that to me. I gave them to somebody else, and then the person said, no, give it to so-and-so, that would be much better for that project. And it's difficult to do that before I know what you're doing. So I will try and confirm by about Monday, possibly Tuesday, who your supervisor is. Okay? Best as I can. So give me as much as you can by Thursday. I'll try and find your supervisor. And then after that, after Tuesday, I'll kind of leave you alone for a bit, stop rabbiting on at you, and get you to meet your tutor and discuss your proposal with them and get a bit more individual response. I know people are coming to my door to get an individual response to me, but I can't do 120 individual responses all the time. Some people get it, some people don't. The real individual tuition comes from your tutor. So they'll be expecting to see you within a fortnight of me saying on Friday. So they might contact you, because I'll give them your email addresses. Don't rely on that. Staff are up to their eyes in marking at the minute with boards and everything else. You might go to the bottom of the list. You have my permission to nag your tutor, send up at the door, ring them up, email them, whatever you want, to say, I need a meeting with you, okay? And then you might shuffle back up to the top of the pile and become important because student again, still not answered their email. So that's what I do anyway. I sometimes just respond to the person shouting them out. So you have my permission to nag your tutor once you know who it is to get that meeting organised. And then have that discussion about your proposal. And that discussion will be different for everybody. Some people will be, brilliant, go ahead, do whatever it is you said you were going to do, that's a wonderful plan. And other people go, right, we're starting from scratch, are we? Okay? And you just start from where you are. Okay? I will see you for 1 more week then, and then there's a little bit of a gap. If you've got referred examinations, they're in the gap. And you have to advise your tutor whether you can do referred examinations and see them and do your project all at the same time. If you're one of those students who is not going to continue with your project because you haven't passed enough modules, those results come out next week too. And this is part of the shuffling around. The board of examiners meet on Friday to discuss final results. So some students will be, let's not get too much into your project now, because you need to do some extra modules or whatever. For a lot of students, they won't know that until after referrals. It could be on the outcome of the resits, which are not until another 4 weeks in. If you think you might be one of those with resits, and that could be the make or break of you continuing, what you can't really do is leave it until then. You have to work on the assumption that everything can be fine. Otherwise, you're going to be halfway through the project before you start. So I'm sorry that's the way it works. We'll try and organise it better. Every time we look at it, there's an easy way of doing it without keeping you here till Christmas. And you having nothing to do for a few weeks, which is against the rules of some overseas study visas. You have to keep going because everybody's going to be hungry with the results. But we will contact you to say there is no point continuing because you're not going to get a master's at the end of this. We need to look again at your programme and then discuss those with you individually. But for most of you, you will have to keep going and meet with your tutor. And I will see you again on I've forgotten the date. 12th of July is the next one. If you want to know, those of you who got it. So I see you again next week on Tuesday, and then there's 1, 2, 3 weeks while we back about with resits, and then the 12th of July. And I see you the week before the mid-project reports to you. So please don't do nothing between next week and that week, just because I'm not watching you, because you'll be in real trouble. This is actually halfway through, and you can see why those waiting out for a research exam should not leave it until the results come out, which will be about there before handing in the project report. The results will come up probably, I think, in the week beginning of July. Okay, does everyone know what they're doing? Yeah.
If we need some third-party data, what's the possibility?
If you need it, well, how do you think you can get it? There's no resources to buy it. So if they're selling the data, we can't usually do that. If they give it to you, that's fine. The intellectual property rights can be tricky. You can agree to keep certain things, certain aspects of data unpublished, but the thesis is published. Academic is by its very nature public. So again, you'll have to talk it through with the tutor or me about intellectual property rights if you're using commercial data. But getting it, if you're asking the university to buy it, they won't. There's no money. Essentially, it's either offered to you freely, and we sort out the copyright, or it's not. It's one of the things I'll actually be talking about on next week, actually, which is arrangements for ethics approval and source materials and handling all that sort of thing.
What should we write in the project proposal?
Well, write what data you are hoping and where you hope to get it from. Okay. Any more? Yeah?
Chapter produces contingency plans, risk management about the project.
It is useful to have a little analysis of that.
Does it mean that if we are not giving the project we are willing to get done, we will be writing for another project?
No, normally what we do is there a project if that particular risk was to be realised? So if you're saying, I rely on having access to this database and suddenly that database is no longer available to you, what would be your plan B? Is there the alternative data? Would you be able to create your own data? What would be the plan B? If it looks too risky, and we're saying you are totally dependent on access to this one person, this one piece of data, and we can't be sure that you're going to get it, the chances are we'll ask you to do something else. It's just not worth it. This is the whole point of this is to get you a good master's grade. So let's not jeopardise that at any cost. We want everyone to get as good a mark as they possibly can for their project. And if we see that there could be a real detriment to your project by something happening that we think is quite likely to happen, then we'll probably try and talk around it. Whatever that is. There are many projects you could do. Any more queries?
I've got a couple of ideas and nothing set in stone or nothing.
Okay.
Do I just throw them all down?
Yeah, why not? That'll be an interesting first meeting with the tutor. Project idea 1, 2, 3, 4. And the tutor might come along and say, I like that one. Maybe that will influence you. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll make up your mind by the time you need to which one you like. At the end of the day, it's in your hands. But you might want their opinion too.
So I submit this three many versions.
Yeah.
Something.
You can just say the free version. Yeah, just tell them what's in your head. It's just to save them time and to give them time to prepare. So just put down what you think. Any more?
You do a proposal in one project area and then later on you change it after you've met with your tutor to another project area. You get your tutor change also.
Sometimes we change tutors. but sometimes it's difficult. There's usually a lot of room for manoeuvre. We try to limit any tutor to 10 projects. Just so you know what happens, any tutor that's supervising a project will also second mark another project. So your project's marked by 2 people independently, and the marks are brought together. So anybody who's doing 10 project supervisions will automatically be marking 20 projects. And we think that is more than enough. Okay, 20 project reports at the end. So we tend to limit them. So if this person's already up full, even if they might be more appropriate, it's sometimes not possible to give them another one. On the other hand, as some people drop out, if perhaps they don't have the results they wanted, or deferring their project, sometimes spaces we can renegotiate it. What quite often happens is tutors will share. So you'll have a supervisor who says, but I've agreed with so-and-so that he will also supervise you. So they're not going to be marking their project, but you can go to them for advice. That happens quite a lot. If it sort of wanders out of the expertise of the tutor that you've got, it says, I've got someone else on my team. So you end up with 3 tutors, essentially, but somebody else comes onto the team just to help you, but not necessarily to mark the project at the end or something like that. So we'll address it as the problem arises. But quite often you'll find that a lot of the tutors we use for masters are quite broad in their expertise, so that makes a good project tutor. If they're too specialist, they're not always the best project tutor. If they're quite broad in their expertise, they're usually quite good. So it might be that it's not, even if you change your project, it's still within scope.
Second question I wanted to ask, is it compulsory that as long as you're doing a project in computer science, it must have some programming in it?
You're supposed to demonstrate, the phrase is, where are we? It's this thing that, it kind of comes into this bit where they're saying, I'm looking for the right one. It's application of knowledge I'm looking for. It's talking about apply their knowledge of. So you have to have knowledge of computer science. Now, for a lot of people that means knowledge of programming. You might not be doing any, you need to know about it. For other people, it might be a different aspect of computer science. It depends on how you define your topic a little bit. But if you are working in a topic area and you can't really understand what you're trying to apply it to, it's difficult. So there are plenty of projects where there's no programming in it whatsoever, and it's computer science, but as long as you're showing applying your knowledge of computer science in a particular context and it's appropriate, it'll be fine. You have to make sure. Where it falls down is where somebody produces something that clearly is based on development. They're using someone else's code, properly referenced, saying, well, I've got this off the internet and I'm using that because it's something that has to have this program, whatever it is, and they don't understand how it works. How does this show knowledge of your subject? You've basically nicked someone else's, said it works, but I'm not going to mess with it because I can't work out how it works. And if I change that, it doesn't work anymore, so I didn't change it anymore. And that's the sort of student that typically does badly. And then the reputation, well, you can't program, you can't get a project. It's not quite how it works. If you're choosing a topic area, you have to show knowledge of it and understanding. Even if you didn't do the work, you didn't program yourself, you use someone else's code as part of your project because it's important, you should at least understand it. Okay. Any other queries? Okay, I'll let you go, and I will hopefully see lots of bits of paper flying my way on Thursday. Hand it in on StudyNet as well, please, so I can quickly go down the list and check your signature something.